Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to unpack something pretty significant happening in crypto.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a potential shift.
It really does. We're talking about Bitwise's recent S1 filing for a spot Avalanche ETF, AVX for short. And look, for anyone tracking institutional money coming into crypto, this is more than just another fund potentially launching.
Absolutely. It feels like it could really change things for all altcoins, really. It challenges that whole Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum narrative we've had for so long.
Exactly. That's the core of it.
What's fascinating here, I think, is that this isn't just, paperwork for a new financial product. It feels like a statement.
A statement about what, specifically?
About altcoin legitimacy. That's the term that comes to mind.
Yeah.
You have Bitwise, serious player, already handling Bitcoin ETFs.
Right.
And now they're pushing for an ETF beyond BTC and ETH. That signals, potentially, a much broader institutional hug for digital assets.
Yeah, the diversification move.
It's more than just market access. It could actually redefine how mainstream finance looks at the whole crypto space beyond those first two big names.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. Let's dissect this filing from every angle.
Sounds good.
We need to understand what it means for AVAX itself, sure, but also how it might, set the stage for other big altcoins.
Like Solana, Chainlink, Cardano.
Yeah. And what does it all tell us about where institutional adoption is heading? Are we finally looking at a truly multi-chain future in their eyes?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. So our goal today is simple. Make sure you, listening right now, walk away really understanding this development, armed with insights, not just headlines.
Exactly. Context is key here.
Okay, but before we jump right into Avalanche and the ETF details, just a quick word. If you're getting value from these conversations, if these deep dives help you make sense of the crypto world...
Which can be pretty chaotic sometimes.
Understatement. But yeah, if it helps, please take a second to hit like, maybe drop a comment and subscribe to the channel.
It genuinely makes a huge difference.
It really does. Your engagement is honestly how we grow, how the algorithm notices us, and frankly, how we keep the lights on to make more content like this for you.
So yeah, a quick click helps us out a ton. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. All right, let's get into the main event then, Avalanche ETF.
Let's do it.
So the headline news here, the thing causing all the buzz, it really is groundbreaking, isn't it? We've seen the Bitcoin ETFs launch, the Ethereum ETF stuff progressing.
Right. That's good in the story so far.
But this feels different. Bitwise, who, as you said, is a big name in managing crypto assets, they've officially filed that S1 form with the SEC.
The Securities and Exchange Commission, yeah?
For a spot Avalanche ETF holding actual AVX.
That spot part is crucial, not futures-based.
Exactly. And this isn't just, adding another ticker symbol somewhere. This puts AVAX potentially right at the front of the line.
One of the very first major altcoins, yeah, outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum.
To possibly get a regulated ETF structure here in the US, that's not a small step. It feels like a potential door opening for the whole altcoin market.
It really could be. A new phase, maybe.
So let's break down that S1 filing first. What exactly is it for people who might not be familiar?
Sure. So the S1 filing, think of it as the official starting point. It's a mandatory registration statement you have to file with the SEC if you want to offer securities, like ETF shares, to the public.
Okay, like the prospectus almost.
Kind of, yeah. It's Bitwise formally saying, hey, we intend to create and offer this ETF product that holds actual AVAX. This lays out all the nitty-gritty details.
Like how the fund works, the risks.
Exactly. Structure, operations, risks involved, it's all supposed to be in there. And without getting that S1 filed and eventually approved, the ETF simply can't happen. So filing it signals serious intent.
Got it. Step one.
Step one. But what makes this particularly interesting is the regulatory environment it's entering. It's challenging.
We saw that with Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Years of trying.
Absolutely. Years of rejections, delays, back and forth with the SEC. Remember the Winklevoss attempt way back?
Vaguely, yeah. 2017.
Yeah, around then, rejected. Concerns about market manipulation, lack of surveillance sharing. Bitcoin only just got its spot ETFs approved after a long fight.
And Ethereum is still kind of navigating that with the whole proof of stake thing and classification questions.
Precisely. So for an altcoin like Avalanche to step into the same arena now, it really does suggest maybe, just maybe, the SEC's stance is evolving, or at least being tested.
So Bitwise is maybe thinking they have a stronger case now.
They must be. They've learned from the Bitcoin and Ether battles. Maybe they're highlighting Avalanche's subnet structure for custody or its validator network for market integrity, trying to address those old SEC concerns head on.
So it's a strategic play, not just throwing something at the wall.
Oh, definitely. And you can track all this. Outlets like The Block cover it, and the filings are public on the SEC's database. It's transparent.
Okay, so here's where it gets, as I said, really interesting for the whole market. Why is this filing such a big deal? Why is it shaking up that Bitcoin first, maybe Ether second idea?
Well, you've got Avalanche, a major Layer 1 blockchain, getting this level of institutional attention. It directly challenges that hierarchy.
Right. It's not just BTC or ETH anymore.
Exactly.
Which brings us nicely to the why it matters part. Let's talk implications. First, for AVX itself, legitimacy.
Huge potential boost there.
Yeah. Imagine an institutional-grade product, an ETF, letting traditional investors buy AVX exposure easily. It's not just about the price maybe going up.
Although that's what many will focus on initially.
True. But it's more about credibility, right? Maturity. It's like Wall Street saying, okay, Avalanche is serious business.
It transforms it from maybe a niche tech thing for crypto natives
to something your financial advisor might actually talk about. A recognized investable asset class. That kind of validation is massive for a project.
Absolutely transformative.
And then, zooming out from just AVX, could this be the start of a bigger wave?
That's the hope, or maybe the speculation in some corners.
We had the Bitcoin spot ETFs finally break through. Ethereum's moving along. Now Avalanche is knocking on the door. Does this mean institutions want more?
It strongly suggests their appetite isn't limited to just the top two. They're looking deeper.
Into the broader Layer 1 space.
Yeah. This filing could be the vanguard, the first ripple of a bigger institutional push into other foundational blockchains. Ones with strong tech, active developers, real use cases.
So sophisticated investors looking to diversify their crypto holdings beyond just the obvious choices.
Exactly. They're not content with just Bitcoin and Ethereum anymore. They're seeking out other promising technologies. This feels like the next logical step in institutional crypto adoption.
Okay, so if we connect the dots here,
Right.
What about the regulatory precedent this could set? Assuming it eventually gets approved, of course.
That's a massive point. If an AVAX ETF gets the green light, even if it seems unlikely today,
It forces the SEC's hand, doesn't it?
in a way, yes. It would almost compel them to create a more detailed framework for evaluating altcoins. They'd have to explain why Avalanche, with its specific tech stack, its consensus model, its validator setup,
Qualifies as a commodity suitable for an ETF.
while maybe another altcoin doesn't. It moves beyond just saying, is it a security or a commodity, to a much more nuanced assessment. Market structure, decentralization levels, manipulation potential.
So it's not just about legitimacy, it's about defining what makes an altcoin institutional grade in the eyes of regulators.
Precisely. It signals the regulators themselves are maturing their understanding, moving beyond broad strokes.
Can we compare this to the Ethereum ETF journey? Even the futures ones that came first.
Yeah, that's a good parallel. Those Ethereum futures ETFs, while not spot, were still a big deal.
They showed the SEC would consider something beyond Bitcoin.
Exactly. They acknowledged Ether, at least in a futures context, as commodity-like enough for a regulated product. An Avalanche spot ETF would just take that precedent much, much further, right into the heart of the Layer 1 ecosystem.
Setting a template for others.
Potentially. Or at least providing valuable lessons for other projects wanting to follow.
So, thinking macro then, this is also about changing perceptions, right? The psychology around crypto.
Totally. For years, crypto's been seen as, well, niche, speculative, maybe a bit Wild West.
Retail-driven, high volatility, regulatory uncertainty.
All of that. But introducing regulated ETFs, especially for altcoins, starts to fundamentally shift that perception.
How so?
It positions crypto, or at least parts of it, as a legitimate, diversified asset class, something that can offer regulated investment products.
Attractive to conservative capital, pension funds, endowments.
Potentially, yes.
Oh.
Those institutions often can't touch crypto directly because they need regulated wrappers, familiar structures. An AVX ETF provides exactly that.
So it signals crypto is maturing, moving into the mainstream investment discussion.
That's the idea. It takes it out of the purely speculative bucket and puts it into the asset allocation conversation for traditional finance.
Okay, that makes sense. A big psychological shift. Now let's bring it down to the individual investor level. How does this practically impact you, the listener?
Well, the most obvious impact is access.
Making it easier to buy.
Much easier. Think about getting into crypto directly now. You need to pick an exchange, figure out wallets, keys, security. Maybe self-custody.
It can be intimidating for newcomers. Lots of hurdles, perceived risks.
Definitely. An Avalanche ETF, if approved, would just sweep all that complexity away.
How?
You just buy it through your normal brokerage account, like buying a stock or any other ETF. Simple.
So it lowers the barrier to entry massively, opens it up to a whole new group of people who were maybe hesitant before.
Exactly. A huge pool of potential capital that couldn't or wouldn't engage directly with crypto exchanges.
And beyond just access, what about market efficiency? ETFs usually help with liquidity, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's a major benefit. When an ETF starts trading on a regulated stock exchange, you almost always see trading volume for the underlying asset pick up significantly.
More buyers and sellers.
Right. Which leads to better liquidity. Think of it like adding more lanes to a highway. Things flow smoother.
And that helps reduce the spread, the gap between buy and sell prices.
Exactly. The authorized participants who keep the ETF price aligned with the actual AVAX price through creating and redeeming shares. That whole mechanism boosts liquidity and tightens spreads.
Which is good for everyone, from big institutions to small retail traders.
Precisely. It makes the market more efficient, more robust, potentially even a bit more stable over time because there's more consistent two-way flow.
Okay, easier access, better liquidity, sounds great. But there are caveats, right? This isn't a done deal.
Crucially, no. And this is super important. Filing does not mean approval.
Cannot stress that enough.
We've seen so many crypto ETF filings get rejected over the years. The filing itself creates buzz, speculation, maybe moves the price short term.
But it's absolutely no guarantee the product will ever launch.
None whatsoever.
So let's game out the scenarios. What happens if it does get approved?
Well, you'd likely expect a significant price pump for AVXX. New money flowing in, easier retail access, the positive sentiment from validation.
The floodgates opening, potentially.
Potentially. But the opposite is also true. What if it gets rejected?
Then you could see a pretty sharp dip, right? Or at least a sell-off.
Yeah. Or even just long delays, negative comments from regulators. That could trigger selling pressure. It really highlights the volatility still inherent here.
Even with institutional interest building.
Absolutely. The market prices and probabilities. If expectations aren't met, corrections can be swift. We see this all the time with regulatory news impacting crypto prices. You can even track institutional flows through reports like CoinShares weekly updates. They're very sensitive to this stuff.
So this brings up a really practical question for you, the listener. Would you actually buy an Avalanche ETF if it became available? Or do you prefer holding AVX directly?
It's a really interesting trade-off to consider.
What are the pros and cons?
Well, the ETF offers huge convenience. Fits right into your existing financial setup, probably lower minimums, easier taxes, no self-custody headaches.
The easy button.
Pretty much. But holding AVX directly, that gives you true ownership. You can stake for yield, participate in governance, use Avalanche dApps directly.
More control, more engagement with the actual network.
Exactly.
Right.
But also more responsibility, managing keys, security. So it really depends on your goals, your risk tolerance, even your philosophy of a decentralization.
Convenience versus control, a classic dilemma in this space. Okay, let's widen the lens again. What about the impact on the broader Web3 world and the Avalanche ecosystem itself?
This could be a major catalyst for growth within Avalanche.
How so? If institutional money flows in via an ETF.
Yeah, imagine that capital fueling development.
Yeah.
In DeFi on Avalanche, you can see more liquidity and lending protocols, DXs, yield farms, boosting that total value lock, the TVL.
More financial activity, more innovation.
Right. In GameFi, blockchain gaming on Avalanche could get a serious boost. More funding, maybe attracting bigger studios.
And what about enterprise use? Businesses using Avalanche.
That could accelerate too. Institutional validation makes corporations more comfortable. We might see more companies exploring Avalanche subnets for their specific needs. It's about regulated capital enabling real development and usage.
And Avalanche isn't exactly starting from zero here, right? They already have some partnerships.
Definitely not. They've done some interesting work, like with Deloitte, using subnets for FEMA disaster relief tracking, apparently.
Okay, that's a serious use case.
And their integration with AWS, Amazon Web Services, makes it easier for businesses to build on Avalanche. So institutions are already experimenting there.
So the ETF would be like pouring gasoline on an existing fire, validating current efforts and bringing in more fuel.
That's a good way to put it. A seal of approval plus a direct channel for more institutional capital to flow into that ecosystem creates a positive feedback loop.
Okay, switching gears slightly strategically, what does this filing tell us about how Wall Street views the overall crypto market now?
It's a really strong signal, I think, that they're not just betting on Bitcoin and Ethereum anymore.
They're looking beyond the top two. Diversification.
Exactly. It suggests a growing belief in a multi-chain future. The idea that different layer ones can coexist, maybe specialize in different areas, DeFi, gaming, enterprise.
That seems to be gaining traction institutionally.
It does. This AVX ETF move shows big players recognize the value in these other foundational layers. They're preparing products that reflect that diverse landscape. It's not a winner-take-all mindset.
Could this spark competition, an ETF arms race?
Like that term. Yeah, potentially. Bitcoin and Ether ETFs are happening or progressing. Now AVX is in the mix.
So if the SEC seems even slightly open to this,
Then you can bet projects like Solana, Cardano, Polkadot, they'll all be pushing their partners to file too.
everyone wants that institutional stamp of approval.
And the potential inflows that come with it. Solana with its speed, Cardano with its academic approach, Polkadot with its interoperability. They all have strong arguments. It'll be fascinating to watch that race play out.
We're already seeing signs of this broader interest, aren't we?
We are. Look at Van Eck filing for a Solana ETF in Europe. That shows global demand.
Right, not just a U.S. thing.
And even before spot ETFs, we had things like Grayscale's altcoin trusts, Elling-Ake, SOL, LTC.
Those showed early institutional interest, but they weren't perfect, right? Premiums, discounts.
Exactly. They lack the efficiency of a true spot ETF with that creation-redemption mechanism. Spot ETFs are just a much better, more accessible vehicle for serious capital.
And we see other ecosystems like Polygon getting traction in gaming and enterprise, drawing attention that way too.
Yeah, it all points to this broadening interest. Research from places like Masari and the project's own partnership announcements, they all highlight these strategic moves to attract institutional players. They're positioning themselves for this.
It really does feel like the landscape is diversifying quickly. So with all this going on, how do we actually track the impact? How do we measure if this AVAX ETF filing or potential approval is really moving the needle?
Great question. We need to look beyond just the hype. There are several key metrics and charts we should be watching.
Okay, like what?
Well, obviously AVX price itself. How does it react specifically to ETF news? Filing, rumors, approval, rejection. That immediate correlation tells you about market sentiment right now.
Is it sustained momentum or just buy the rumor, sell the news?
Exactly. But beyond price, we need to watch Avalanche DeFi Total Value Locked, TVL.
Why TVL?
Because it shows actual capital being put to work in the ecosystem. If TVL starts climbing significantly and stays up after ETF news, that suggests real confidence in activity, not just price speculation. It indicates health.
Got it. What else?
ETF inflow comparisons will be huge if it gets approved.
Comparing potential AVX inflows to what Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs saw.
Right. We saw billions flow into those. Using them as benchmarks, considering AVX's relative size, can give us a rough estimate of the potential financial impact. It helps quantify things.
Makes sense. What about on-chain activity?
Definitely. Transaction volume and active addresses on Avalanche. Are more people actually using the network?
Higher volumes, more active wallets. That signals real adoption and utility, right?
Precisely. An ETF could boost visibility and drive more users and developers to the platform, so we'd want to see that reflected in the on-chain data. It shows organic growth.
Okay, one more.
Market cap rankings. Where does AVX sit compared to Solana, Cardano, Polkadot, these other potential ETF candidates?
Watching for shifts in dominance.
Yeah. If AVX starts climbing in the ranks consistently, especially against those competitors, it could indicate it's winning that institutional favor, that shift in perception we talked about.
So looking at all these together gives a much clearer picture than just price alone.
Absolutely. Price, TVL, potential inflows, on-chain activity, market cap.
Yeah.
They collectively give you a pulse check on institutional interest and actual ecosystem adoption. It's how you separate signal from noise.
Right. These aren't just numbers. They're telling a story about adoption.
Exactly. They help translate the speculation into something measurable.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What does this all mean for you, our listener? We've dug deep into this Bitwise Avalanche ETF filing.
And it's clearly a big deal.
Far more than just another crypto headline. It's potentially about legitimizing altcoins for traditional finance, making access way easier for new investors, and really shaping that multi-chain future for Web3.
The ripple effects could be huge, well beyond just AVXX's price. Regulatory precedents, market dynamics, the whole competitive landscape for layer ones.
It really feels like a potential coming-of-age moment for the entire altcoin space.
It does. Which leaves us with a key question for you to think about.
Go on.
Will an AVX ETF, if it happens, lead to long-term price appreciation? Or is it mostly hype right now, vulnerable to that buy the rumor, sell the news effect? Understanding that difference is going to be crucial as more of these products potentially emerge.
That's a great point. Short-term speculation versus long-term value. Or here's another one to chew on. If Avalanche does get an ETF, who should be next? Solana, Chainlink, Cardano. What makes your pick the most compelling case, and what hurdles might they face?
Yeah, who has the strongest narrative, the most robust ecosystem, the clearest path through the regulatory maze? Lots to consider there.
Definitely fascinating questions as we head into what feels like a really transformative time for crypto. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.
Hope it was helpful.
We really hope you feel better informed and ready to track these developments. Until next time, keep exploring.